get in here.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, no, they know I'm coming.
Hey, it's Trey, and I'm in Western Maryland, just south of Cumberland, at the entrance of the Women's Health Center of Maryland. And I understand my fellow visitors' surprise. Men with microphones aren't always welcome at a women's reproductive health center, especially a new clinic that offers abortions.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have a 9 o'clock appointment.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and buzz you in. Will you go ahead and just flash your ID in the camera for me?
Oh, yeah. Can you see it?
Perfect. Thank you.
You know I'm coming.
Yeah, if you want to come with me,
Hi, sure.
we can come back into the waiting
Do you
room.
need me to
after
check in at all?
No.
I'm met by a woman holding a set of keys and a cell phone.
Are you Katie?
I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you in person.
I'm just reaching
There we
out
go.
to shake your hand, yeah. But yeah, so here we are.
Here we are.
Katie Quinones is executive director of the Women's Health Center of Maryland. She is also the executive director of the Women's Health Center of West Virginia. That center, located in Charleston, was West Virginia's only abortion clinic until West Virginia banned abortion in September 2022. The center still provides reproductive health services, but last summer, the Women's Health Center relocated its abortion services here, 10 miles south of Cumberland and less than 2 miles from the West Virginia border.
Okay. Real quick, I can show you the waiting room.
Quinones shows me the waiting room, which has a large, colorful mural of flowers painted on one wall. There's a counseling office, a lab room, and 3 exam rooms.
But this is where all patients come for gynecological care, their annual exams, birth control, STI testing, and treatment visits, as well as gender-affirming hormone therapy. This is where they meet with their provider.
There are also 2 rooms for surgical or procedural abortions. However, Quinones says for now, they're only offering medication abortion. At the time of my visit, the clinic was only 6 months old and still ramping up.
I know, it doesn't look very... I hate how blank the walls are right now.
Well, it just looks new. It looks...
Yeah, I mean, we recognized that there was a need to start abortion care as soon as possible because people in this region didn't have another option. People were being forced to travel hours away. So we were kind of building the plane while we were flying it, so to speak. So yeah, there's still more work to be done. Is it okay if we walk into my office so they can bring the patient back for her appointment? With
Sure, yeah, please, you direct.
As Quinones leads me into her office, she points towards the window, where there is a view of blue-gray mountain ridges.
That is actually West Virginia, over there, those mountains.
Oh. So we're in your office, and if you look out the window, it's a beautiful sunrise, too. We're here in the state of Maryland, and we're looking over into West Virginia.
That was one of the deciding factors of why we purchased this building. I remember coming to look at it with our realtor. They had told me the price of the facility, and I immediately thought we cannot afford that. But I'm already here, so I'll go look at the building. And when we got out of the car and we walked up to the side employee entrance, she pointed over in this direction and said, "You see those mountains over there? That's actually West Virginia." And then that really solidified it in my mind that the intent of this clinic was to provide another option, a closer option for West Virginians to access abortion care now that our governor had signed a total abortion ban into law. But yeah, looking over and seeing the West Virginia mountain line, that really solidified it that, okay, I guess we have to work to make this building a reality.
Are you originally from West Virginia?
I was born in California and lived the first decade of my life there, but I've lived in West Virginia and Cabell County for the past 20 plus years. So I claim West Virginia as my home.
Okay. So yeah, you're very connected to the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the whole idea of you finding this location and that you look out of your office window and that you see the rolling hills of West Virginia, even just looking at your body reaction as you tell me that story.
I'm tearing up.
Yeah.
Can we stop recording for a second? I didn't know that was gonna evoke this reaction in me.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX, you're listening to Us and Them, the show that tells the stories about the things that divide us. I'm Trey Kay. Abortion access in the U.S. varied widely, even before the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. That's the 2022 decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Some states had lots of clinics. Some had just a few. But every state had at least one. That changed when the Dobbs decision ended the federal right to an abortion and let states come up with their own regulations. Now, abortion access has become even more fragmented and deeply polarized. 14 states, including West Virginia, have essentially banned abortion. They have become what some call abortion deserts. 7 states have imposed stricter legal limits, and 22 states have moved to protect abortion rights and expand access. Maryland is one of those states.
I'm very proud to sign legislation that will protect access to abortion in Maryland.
Last May, Democratic Governor Wes Moore approved laws that do several things. They allow a wider range of medical professionals to perform abortions. They maintain the privacy of abortion-related medical records. And they shield doctors and others from criminal investigations by states with more restrictive abortion laws.
In this moment of serious consequences for women and for all Marylanders, Maryland can and will lead on this issue of abortion access. And I want to say to all the women who are out there who are wondering what will happen, who are worried about their future, please hear me loud and clear. Maryland will always be a safe haven for abortion access and abortion rights.
Maryland Democrats who control the legislature want to go even further. They want abortion rights written into the state constitution. The General Assembly has placed a reproductive rights amendment on the ballot this fall. Democratic Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick chairs the House Delegates' Health and Government Services Committee, where the amendment was first considered. She says an abortion rights amendment is necessary, even though Maryland has been a reliably blue state for a long time.
It's necessary because we feel very strongly that we want Maryland to remain a state that protects abortion access. On the ballot this November, Maryland voters will once again be able to affirmatively and resoundingly say that reproductive freedom should be a constitutional right. It is the highest protection that we can give our constituents.
Maryland's drive to protect abortion rights and access has brought other OBGYNs to the state, including Dr. Anna Banfield. She moved her practice to a hospital system in southern Maryland after working for 13 years at a hospital in the town of Elkins, West Virginia.
At the time that I just made my decision to leave, Dobbs was not official, but those of us who had been working in the space and those of us who paid attention to the political climate in that space knew it was coming, right? We knew as soon as
You could see the writing on the wall.
court changes. Yeah, it was only a matter of time before it came down the pike.
Banfield says practicing medicine in rural West Virginia was difficult and exhausting.
I had spent a lot of years trying to recruit to our practice there, and working a lot of shifts, taking a lot of call. And then on top of that, trying to advocate within the state, trying to advocate at the state government level to protect reproductive rights in West Virginia. And I got this great opportunity in Maryland, which is a very friendly and protective state from a women's health and reproductive health standpoint. And we saw the writing on the wall, and I knew I was coming here and I was going to have to work less in a more friendly environment. And I just couldn't pass that up. I don't think I would have left otherwise.
Are you encouraging other physicians who practice obstetrics to come to Maryland?
Well, I just hired 3 new physicians into my practice, one of whom came from Georgia.
Georgia has one of the strictest gestational limits in the country. It bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, before many women know they're pregnant. Banfield says Maryland law helps her recruit new doctors.
One of the things that I tell them is you're coming to Maryland. We are able to access services. You don't have to worry about having a frank and honest conversation with your patient about what their reproductive options are. You don't have to feel like you can't tell someone something that is medically appropriate because of restrictions. It is incredibly liberating to not have to worry about those things and not feel like you can't tell your patients the truth.
It's hard to know how many OBGYNs are relocating or changing careers because of the abortion bans and restrictions. Experts in the field warn the post-Roe landscape could permanently reshape the practice of obstetrics and gynecology, driving doctors out of red states and reducing the number of OBGYNs available for routine reproductive health care. It's also tough to track the number of abortion clinics that have moved to a neighboring state with more favorable laws. Caitlin Myers, an economics professor at Middlebury College in Vermont, has been collecting clinic data. She says at least 6 have relocated, including 2 that made a short move across state lines. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers in Maryland oppose Democrats' laws protecting and expanding abortion access, especially the proposed constitutional amendment. Republican leaders in the Maryland Senate issued a statement saying, "We are certain that becoming the abortion capital of the United States is not something to aspire to or be proud of." Katie Quinones says a week after West Virginia banned abortion, she was in Allegheny County in western Maryland, looking for property to buy. She says the decision to open a clinic there was intentional. Not only was the county seat of Cumberland close to the West Virginia border, Allegheny and neighboring Garrett and Washington counties were abortion deserts too.
We looked at the area very intentionally. We didn't just say, we're going to put a clinic here. We did a market analysis and looked at what healthcare was available in those counties in Mountain Maryland. And we found that not only was there not an abortion provider, the nearest abortion provider for the people living in Mountain Maryland were at least 100 miles away in any direction, but there was also a real lack of reproductive healthcare outside of a hospital system located in Cumberland. And then beyond that, we met directly with folks on the ground living and working in those communities to determine that, yes, there is a need here. Not only do we need abortion access, we need reproductive health care.
Quinones says she expects to serve about 900 abortion patients in the clinic's first year of operation.
What percentage do you believe will be West Virginian? And do you think that they will come from places in Maryland and Pennsylvania and elsewhere?
Yeah, I can tell you what we've seen so far. Right now, the majority of patients are from Western Maryland, but nearly half of the patients that we've served so far are West Virginians.
I mean, I know to get from, say, Charleston to Cumberland, it's about a 3-hour drive.
It's a 3.5-hour drive. Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit of a trip. Do you think that...
The reality is that West Virginians, because of a total abortion ban that was passed by politicians, they are already traveling hours and hours away out of their communities from their homes to access abortion care. So we know that patients will drive that far. Patients are already doing it.
A study by the Guttmacher Institute, a research and policy organization that supports reproductive rights, backs that up. According to the study, the number of patients traveling out of state to get an abortion has more than doubled since the Dobbs decision. Guttmacher found people seeking abortions who live in states with total bans or early gestational limits primarily go to bordering states where abortion is legal and less restrictive. That makes conservative Republicans in Western Maryland uneasy.
I had a reporter from Washington Post call me and do an interview, and she asked me, how do you feel about this abortion clinic just moving across the state line or across the Potomac? And I said, there's never been a need for it.
After a break, we'll hear how the Women's Health Center of Maryland is being received in its new home. You're listening to Us and Them. This program is supported in part by the West Virginia Humanities Council and the CRC Foundation.
Music lifts us up and brings us together, even when we can't get together in person. Mountain Stage brings you live performances on the air, online, and in our podcast. They remind you how it feels to be in a live audience listening to live music. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find a link to our stations and our podcast online at mountainstage.org.
Hey, it's Trey, and you're listening to Us and Them from PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Tell me where I am right now in America.
You're in Jay-Z's Pub on North Center Street, Cumberland, Maryland.
And what's your name?
My name is Stacy Friend.
Can I hear, who are you?
I'm Mary.
And here we are, what is this, a Tuesday night?
Yes.
I've come to this pub on a rainy weeknight to gauge the reaction to the region's new abortion clinic. The clinic is about 10 miles south of where we are, in downtown Cumberland.
Charleston. And now they've opened up a clinic here just over the border in Maryland, right here in your county and right here near Cumberland. Did you guys know about that?
No, we had no idea that it was here.
You either?
No, I had not a peep.
Okay, so now you know. How do you feel about it?
I think it's great. I think women should have every opportunity to do what they will with their body.
Oh, I agree 100%. This is our body. It's our decision. And the word needs to get out there, I believe, and I'm going to share that on social media so that other women know that it's here. I can't be the only one. We can't be the only two who don't know about it.
Unlike Stacy and Mary, Kresta Kowalski learned about the clinic early from Katie Quinones herself. Kowalski is the president of the Mountain Maryland Alliance for Reproductive Freedom. She says the group has been exploring how to bring an abortion clinic to the area.
We were like, okay, 5 to 10 year goal would be an indie clinic out here in Mountain, Maryland. And then in January, I get an email saying, hi, I'm Katie Quinones, and my friend Ramsey Monk and I work with the Women's Health Center of Charleston, and we'd like to speak with you. And they had already found the location, and it was perfect. It was made for the operation.
What else did you think or feel when the Women's Health Center opened?
Such pride in being a Marylander. I was relieved that we could have options for people that didn't have options. And I was so very scared too. You know, like, this is new. What's going to happen next? Like, what do we have to look forward to? And it has just been a whirlwind since in our capacity to help them. We are just so, again, every time we drive by, there are people parked using the services, and that's what it's there for. So I'm still very happy.
Anti-abortion advocate Michael Mudge found out about the clinic from a pastor's wife who lives across the Potomac River in Kaiser, West Virginia.
She found out from the Right to Life chapter of West Virginia that Katie Quinones was opening a clinic across the state line in a pro-abortion state as close to West Virginia as possible. Okay. And she asked me if I was aware of that. That was the first I'd heard of it.
Mudge is the pastor and founder of Bethany House of the Lord, an evangelical Christian church.
My view on abortion is that Abortion is wrong because it takes a life. And in all of the debates that I've ever gotten into with pro-choice people, I can't ever get them to address the fact that there's a baby.
Mudge says after he heard about the new clinic, he attended the very next meeting of the Allegheny County Commissioners and made them aware of it. He says there weren't a lot of people at the meeting, but the news of the clinic spread.
So 2 weeks later was the next county commissioners meeting, and that was a standing room only crowd, and there were 11 people who gave speeches, and everyone was against this abortion clinic moving here. There was no one who spoke in favor of it.
Mudge says several people at that meeting came together to form Abortion-Free Allegheny. He says their goals are to let people know about the clinic, organize demonstrations against it, and raise awareness about pregnancy support centers and other abortion alternatives. Mudge and other anti-abortion advocates do not like having a new abortion clinic in their backyard, but he knows the clinic has a right to be there.
So what we're dealing with here in Allegheny County, Maryland, is a direct result of the Dobbs decision, and we all know that. The West Virginia legislature took the opportunity after the Dobbs decision to pass legislation effectively banning abortion, and the Maryland state legislature, as in many other states, has responded to the Dobbs decision by radicalizing even more their pro-abortion legislation. So we're caught up in the middle of that. It's just that here we're in a part of Maryland that doesn't fit well in Maryland.
Pastor Michael Mudge is referring to the political segregation that has deepened in Maryland as it has across the country. There's the rural conservative Republican Maryland of the Western Panhandle, the eastern Chesapeake Bay, and the counties north of Baltimore. And there's the urban, liberal, Democratic Maryland of Baltimore City, Annapolis, and the D.C. suburbs that dominate state politics.
The legislature has been Democratic for about 100 years.
David Carroll is an associate professor of government and politics at the University of Maryland.
The governorship has occasionally gone to Republicans, but seldom. And in presidential elections, Maryland has voted Democratic consistently since 1992, whether the Democratic candidate won or lost. And it wasn't always like this.
You told my producer that your students are surprised how less ideologically divided Maryland was. I mean, can you give me an example of just one of those types of conversations that you would have with a student?
I mentioned that in the 1988 presidential election, which is a Bush versus Dukakis.
Right. George H.W. Bush versus...
George H.W. Bush, Bush the First, Bush the Elder, that Bush won Maryland while losing West Virginia, which, is just shocking to students because that's a complete reversal of the alignment that we see today.
In the 2020 presidential election, Joe Biden easily won Maryland. But in Western Maryland's 3 counties, Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington, a significant majority voted for former President Donald Trump. He won 77% of the vote in Garrett County, the highest in the state. Republican Mike McKay has represented Western Maryland in the Maryland General Assembly since 2015, first as a delegate and for the last year as a senator. He says his constituents have felt out of step with their overwhelmingly liberal Democrat fellow Marylanders in other ways, like in 2017 when the legislature banned fracking. It's a controversial method of extracting natural gas from shale. Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington counties are within the gas-rich Marcellus Shale Formation. McKay says fracking could have been an economic game changer for them.
And so the people of Western Maryland saw this as it's like being on the Chesapeake Bay and saying, you can't fish or you can't boat. You can't do anything with the natural resources. And so that's one of those things that has said we kind of felt being ignored.
In 2021, then-Delegate McKay and 5 other Republican lawmakers floated the idea of Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington counties seceding from Maryland to become part of West Virginia. They wrote a letter to the Republican leaders of West Virginia's legislature to gauge their interest. It was a very, very, very long shot.
We sent a letter, And it became a dumpster fire, to be perfectly honest. Everybody went crazy. How are you leaving? Yada, yada, yada. And 2 of our members backed out. And the rest of us, out of respect, really just went our separate ways.
Okay, you've taken me through the process. Mm-hmm. I guess I want to know the motivation.
Motivation was literally Annapolis wasn't listening to us. And this was a way to put it to the people of Western Maryland. Would you be interested? Because your views, your way of life is more like Charleston than it is Annapolis.
McKay says his constituents are more aligned with West Virginia on abortion, too. He describes himself as pro-life and says the Women's Health Center of Maryland is not wanted or needed.
I had a reporter from Washington Post call me and do an interview, and she asked me, how do you feel about this abortion clinic just moving across the state line or across the Potomac? And I said, there's never been a need for it. If there was a need for Planned Parenthood to move here, if there was actually this need, they would have been here by now. We have had women's health clinics here for years. Probably 90% of everything that Planned Parenthood provides for women. And it's important. That 90% is important to urban and rural women. It's the abortion part that I say has been forced on our community because Annapolis and Charleston had totally 2 different views. And our community has had to deal with the aftermath.
Katie Quinones says she's not forcing anything on Western Maryland.
Overwhelmingly, we've been met by the community with support, although abortion providers across the country, no matter where they are located, there is a vocal minority that oftentimes is portrayed louder. You know, the reality is that people want abortion access in their communities, and support for abortion is more popular than ever. Abortion bans are actually not reflective of how most Americans feel.
Since the Dobbs decision, 7 states have put abortion-related measures on the ballot. In every case, voters rejected efforts to restrict abortion and passed measures to protect it. This November, besides Maryland, New York will have an abortion rights amendment on the ballot, and efforts are underway for similar initiatives in 9 other states, including Colorado, Florida, the presidential swing state of Arizona, and Missouri, which has banned abortion. This is what abortion care has become after the fall of Roe, a state-by-state fight over access, where abortion rights are determined by the lines on a map. The state line that divides West Virginia and Maryland runs through mountain communities that are alike in their topography, their culture, and their political affiliations. But on one side of that state line, abortion is legal, while on the other side, abortion is a criminal offense. Pastor Michael Mudge says he's going to be working hard with other conservatives to defeat Maryland's abortion rights constitutional amendment in November.
On this issue, we've been lazy. People of faith in Western Maryland, people of traditional moral values in Western Maryland, people of conservative fiscal and social persuasions in Western Maryland haven't had to get up and do anything because we haven't been provoked by anything. So to have this clinic relocate from Charleston into our county has jolted us into action.
Mudge's state senator, Michael McKay, says he would prefer that the Women's Health Center of Maryland wasn't in his district.
But the reality is, it is a policy that was determined by Annapolis, and loving the great state of Maryland that I do, we've got to take the good and the bad.
He realizes Republican conservatives like him and his constituents are outnumbered by liberal Democrats. Still, he wishes their views weren't ignored.
Look, we shouldn't be driving the train. We're not large enough to drive the train, but we are part of the train. And I tend to believe that with a super majority, and that super majority is a progressive majority, that conservative ideas and ideology are drowned out and not considered.
Democratic delegate Joseline Pena Melnick, who helped shepherd the proposed abortion rights amendment through the Maryland House, is celebrating the tenacity of the Women's Health Center.
When West Virginia banned abortion, the founders of the Women's Health Center of Maryland did not let this draconian restriction defeat them or the women they served. They picked themselves up and moved across the Potomac River, right? They opened their doors last summer, and in doing so, they have opened up access to thousands of women in Western Maryland. And not just Western Maryland, but, West Virginia and even Pennsylvania, right? All 3 states, that little skinny part of Maryland where access is so restricted. And the staff and providers at the women's healthcare centers, I think, are heroes to be able to do that work.
Back in her office at the Women's Health Center of Maryland, with its mountain view of West Virginia, Katie Quinones wipes tears from her eyes and steadies herself. She says everyone has put so much hard work into opening the clinic. There hasn't been time to pause and reflect on how much they've achieved in the past year and why it matters.
I think why this discussion has evoked such strong emotion in me is because I came to this work because of my own abortion experience. We went on a tour of the Maryland clinic a few moments ago, and we walked into the recovery room where patients go after their procedures. I've sat in those recovery chairs during my time as a patient at the West Virginia clinic. This is deeply personal work to me. And I'm not alone in that story. So many people who not only work at Women's Health Center of West Virginia, Women's Health Center of Maryland, abortion clinics across the country came to this work because abortion care is sacred to us. And so while I am emotional in this moment, and while it's all kind of coming to a head while we have this discussion, it also feels like the honor of a lifetime to be able to lead this work and what it has culminated in terms of opening Women's Health Center of Maryland on the West Virginia border.
You've been listening to Us and Them. Our team for this show was me, Trey Kay, Amy Eddings, Matthew Hancock, and Kate Smith. Special thanks to Margaret Chapman Pomponio of West Virginia Free, Cumberland Mayor Ray Morris, and Cumberland City Councilman Richard Sioni. Michael Lipton, Tristam Lozow, and Ahmed Solomon wrote and performed the Us and Them show music. Mark Lerner designed our logo. The marvelous people at PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting make Us and Them possible. So do grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the West Virginia Humanities Council, and the CRC Foundation. Hey, we'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode. Would you share them with us on our Facebook page or on X, formerly Twitter, at Us Them Podcast? Us and Them was originally developed with assistance from the mentorship program at AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. We'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.